Welcome back to the Muse and Greg. Make sure you like and subscribe if you like this video so you never miss an update. So today we're asking, should you buy an Adventure Kings solar blanket as sold by 4-Wheel Drive Supercenter, although some of this content applies to any other solar panel or blanket you might consider. The particular reason for this video is because I'm onto my third Adventure Kings solar blanket in about 9 months of travel around Australia this year, the first two have been replaced under warranty. So it's fair to say my experiences haven't been entirely positive. However, through the fault finding and warranty process, I've learned things you probably need to know when choosing a solar blanket for yourself. First, we're going to very quickly touch on choosing the right size solar blanket so you don't get misled by the advertised power ratings like I did, and then I'll explain why I'm onto my third blanket. After this, we'll jump straight into the unboxing and review of my latest 200 watt unit, and finish up with their general reliability, 4-Wheel Drive Supercenter support, and my recommendations. When choosing a solar panel or blanket, you need to work on the assumption that you'll probably only get about half of its rated power actually going into your batteries. There are a few reasons for this, which I'll cover in a separate video, but for this video, just use that as a ballpark figure. So if you choose a 120 watt solar blanket, you need to assume you'll only get about 60 watts maximum, or about 5 amps at 12 volts, flowing into your batteries. To work out how long it'll take each blanket to recharge your batteries, you simply divide your battery's amp hour rating by this maximum current figure. So if, for example, you have a 100 amp hour battery in your caravan, with the 120 watt blanket producing a maximum of 5 amps, it'll take 100 amp hours divided by 5 amps equals 20 hours to recharge the battery from flat. If you feel like that's too long, then you'll just simply need to look for a larger solar blanket. Again, I'll cover all of this in more detail in a future video, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss it when it comes. So how come this is my third solar blanket in only 9 months? Well, I started off with a 120 watt unit, but this went back under warranty because even in full sun, it was producing less than 40 watts of power, or only about 3 amps, which is about a third of its rated maximum power. I used the credit from this to put towards my first 200 watt unit, which worked well for several months, producing on most days around about 7 amps in full sun. This second blanket failed while we were in Northern Territory. The power output dropped lower and lower and the panel got scorchingly hot, so much so that when I splashed some water onto it to cool it down, the water actually steamed off it. Shortly after this, the panel failed and produced no output at all. 4-Wheel Drive Supercenter honoured the warranty on this unit too, so the unit we're now going to look at is the warranty replacement. So now, that done, let's take a look at what's inside this 200 watt Adventure Kings solar blanket. Don't expect it to be too different to the old one. And no, that looks very similar to this. Inside the front pouch, we also have some of the other accessories that come with it, which is the solar charge controller, just a pretty basic one. Then you get the alligator clip leads to go straight into the battery. That's going to an Anderson plug cable, and you also have the 4.4 metre Anderson plug cable. So let's now see how it works. Here you've got this cable that plugs into the blanket. It goes in there like that. So that's now charging, and you can see that because you've got the solar blanket icon on and the arrows flashing indicating that 13.8 volts is going into the battery. Unfortunately, this controller doesn't give a lot of useful information. It simply tells you what the voltage is going in. It doesn't give you any of the current readings or power readings or anything like that. It's 13.8 volts is going in to the battery. There's 12.6 volts coming out of the battery into the load, and then it just gives you various options for the minimum voltage for it to turn off, how long the time is for it to run, which battery type you're using. It's actually not particularly useful information, and that's the reason I've got this device here, which is a lot more useful. As you can see, the current's steady around about 7.6 amps. As you can see though, 7.5 amps in full sun, 103.5 watts peak. Okay, considering full sun, no cloud on the sky, and that blanket is in full sun, we're only producing just over 100 watts from a 200 watt blanket. And that's the problem with the way these solar blankets are rated. I love that the blanket comes with a 4-metre Anderson plug cable with it, which lets you get a little bit away from the car or the van. I also bought a spare 10-metre extension cable, which I definitely recommend for extra flexibility. It means you can easily get the blanket right out into the full sun. Another great thing about these solar blankets is the little hanging loops all around the outside. It means you can easily hang it vertically, which is really useful early in the morning or later in the afternoon when the sun's coming in at a flatter angle. It wasn't all positive news though with my first 200-watt blanket. The hanging loop started to fray after a few months, and the surface of the panel was starting to get many fine cracks which would reduce the sun getting onto the panel. These things seem to indicate that longevity isn't something you should expect from one of these blankets. There's no perfect solar solution, but I reckon a solar blanket is probably the best compromise, especially if space is a premium. The great thing about a solar blanket compared to a solar panel is that it's very compact. This one folds up to about the size of a large laptop computer bag, so it's very easily stored when it's not in use. Compared to fixed panels on the roof of a caravan, the good thing about the portable units, be they a solid panel or a blanket like this one, is that you can park the van in the shade and then run the panel out into the sun to maximise your charge. The main negative you need to consider with a solar blanket is that given the sun is rarely directly overhead, for maximum power output you often need to have the panel propped up at an angle so it faces the sun. However, because this is a flexible panel, it just folds in the middle, so it's pretty hard to do that. You can stick something behind one half of it to get 3 of the 6 panels at some kind of an angle, but trying to prop both sets of panels at the same angle can be a bit difficult. This is where 4-wheel drive Supercenter's 250-watt blanket with legs may be a good choice. However, it's nearly double the price for only an extra 2 amps of rated output, which is a steep premium for the sake of it having a stand. What about customer support? Well, given the faults I had with mine, this is something you definitely need to consider. It was a bit of a mixed bag in my case. For the first unit that failed, the 120-watt unit, I'd taken plenty of photos and measurements in the process of trying to diagnose what was wrong with it. And even though I provided all of these to 4-wheel drive Supercenter and showed how low the power output was, it took them about a week before they finally agreed to replace it under warranty. We then took it back and returned it in store in Brisbane, and then bought the 200-watt unit with the balance. We paid the balance from the refund they gave us on the 120-watt unit. With the second blanket, their support was much better. From the experience I had with the first one, I knew what information they needed, so I sent all of this through, and within 48 hours of lodging the claim, a replacement unit was on its way to our next scheduled stop in Alice Springs. This type of support was really welcome because there was no way we had time to post the old unit back from Alice Springs, wait for them to assess it before finally posting us a replacement. The fact they were willing to promptly replace it just from the information I sent through was really good. So, would I recommend an Adventure King solar blanket, and if so, which one? Well, I would definitely recommend either unit if you're just using them for a week or weekend away here and there. In these situations, I'm pretty confident they'll perform well enough, and the longevity issues that I face probably won't present themselves to you. For more regular use, such as full-time travel and free camping as we've been doing, I would still give it a cautious buy recommendation given that they worked well for us while they were working. However, make sure you keep your warranty information close at hand because in my experience you may well need to get it replaced. And also work out what your plan's going to be if and when the solar blanket does fail. In our case, we had to use the car's alternator to recharge the batteries while we travelled or go to powered caravan sites, which wasn't really what we'd planned on doing. These panels are keenly priced compared to other units which are at least 50% more, and that's probably the biggest thing in their favour. However, I think the various faults I had indicate that you do rather get what you pay for with these cheaper products. The 200-watt version certainly performed well while it lasted, however neither unit lasted as long as they should have or gave the impression they were really designed for the long haul. I don't have any experience with other brands to say if you get better performance from a more expensive blanket, but I certainly wouldn't want to rely on one of these as my only power source if I was travelling through the middle of Africa. In terms of deciding which solar blanket to choose, very broadly I'd say that get the 120-watt unit if you're just going to charge one small battery. However, if you've got one or more batteries over about 100 amp hours, I'd recommend the 200-watt unit. Our camping setup is low power with LED lighting, a 3-way fridge, so not a compressor fridge, an inverter which we only occasionally use for charging laptops. And on days of full sun, the 200-watt blanket was certainly enough to keep both our batteries charged while we were camping. However, if you get a few cloudy days, or if you have a higher current draw in your van, you'll definitely need at least the 200-watt unit. I hope that's been helpful in terms of helping you decide which solar blanket to get and whether you even want one of these. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.